The 30-second countdown.
It feels like, and I know people can hear me right now, but it always feels like Hunger Games to me.
My daughter
May the
made
odds
me
be
watch
ever
that.
in your favor.
Huh?
My kids made me watch that, but I liked it.
Of course
It's
you
actually
did.
good.
It's very good. Of course you did. Erica, of course you did. Okay, y'all just jumped into our Hunger Games conversation, but I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves today. My name is Jen. I said last week I'm always here because I run this. I choose this. But we are so happy to have our two guests. So, Erica, do you want to start?
Sure. I am Erica Moore with Five Rings Financial. But for the purpose of this call, I'm a parent with a junior in high school, and I need to know the answers to all these questions. So,
and who else do we have?
Hello,
wah. I know
everyone.
our Hokies are going to be offended that I just said that. You want to introduce yourself?
Sorry, Hokies.
I'm
Hello,
collecting
everyone.
pearls. I don't even have them, but I did collect them.
I should have put mine on.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Catrina Garland, and I am an Assistant Dean in the Office of Undergraduate Admission at the University of Virginia.
I'm going to correct the page because it doesn't say doctor, and it's very important to me
It's
that we
not.
get that
Okay.
recognition.
It's okay.
Doctor.
Totally fine.
No, totally not.
Not totally fine. How hard did you work for that?
Say the name again. Say it full. Say it proud.
Dr. Catrina Garland.
Oh, we love that.
Thank
love to see
you
it.
so
We love
much.
to see it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so again, we're having some barbershop, hair salon, barbecue kind of conversations about college admissions. We were just talking about, I went to Virginia Tech for undergrad, and then I went to UVA. I went straight through. So I went to UVA. I was like the baby of law school. And I graduated from UVA in 2009. 2009? Wow. It's coming up. So yeah, it's Charlottesville. Although I love Blacksburg with all of my heart, except for in the winter, Charlottesville always has a special place in my home. And shout out to Marco and Luca, because those dumplings. Anyway, what's going on in Charlottesville now? You guys are wrapping up. Have you guys put out your decisions yet?
Regular decision applicants will be notified on Friday. That was posted on our social media yesterday. So that's new information. Yes, regular decision applicants will be notified on Friday after 5 p.m. So
do you guys don't have a regular date, or do you have a regular date?
Like we don't have a regular date. Okay. It depends on volume, how quickly we can get through things. First, second, third review, all of those things. Mm-hmm. So, but this year we tried to get them out. We always say on or before April 1st. And this year we were earlier than we were last year. So, I mean, it really depends. There's no set date for that reason, to give us some flexibility. But
I just found out that Caltech does it on Pi Day every year.
I like that.
Of course they do.
Of course, I was like,
of course they do.
So cute.
Why would they do anything else?
Now, Erica, are you familiar with the concept of first review, second review, third review? Dr. Garland.
No, you can call me Catrina. It's totally fine.
Katrina, Dr. Katrina. Can you walk us through first review, second review, and third review for those people who don't understand that concept?
Got you. So it's not a traditional set of things. So we do have the system where everybody's application gets read. One of the misconceptions is that we have some sort of system that filters out applications based on certain criteria, and that's not true. Every single application that gets submitted to us that is complete, we review. So a first group of readers will look at applications, and then it'll go to a second group of readers. And then, I, as part of the second group of readers, might read an application once, twice, 3 times. Then we review for scholars. Then we, review for different types of things. So everybody's application gets seen at least once, but there are instances where, you know, we will look at applications more than once. It's a thorough process as we can make it, just so that students know, you know, we appreciate the hard work that they put into, you know, putting all of that together, because it is kind of, it's a lengthy process.
It's a lengthy.
So,
it's not the lengthiest application though, but like
it's not the lengthiest, but it's dense. I would say it's
thoughtful. It's very. It's not like, and no shade to the people who are using like, what's your favorite word? But it's not like 17 different little questions. It's very thought provoking. I mean, one of my favorite questions you guys have, and I'm not sure if you all still have it, is what's your quirk? Is that still a question?
That is one of them. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, what's the quirk that only people that really know you know about you? Erica, are you surprised to hear that they go?
I am. I am.
Really?
Yeah. I
What did you think happened?
I don't know. It's been a minute since I've done this.
They just like threw them up in the air and they're like, yes.
Oh, that's good. Or yeah.
And
that's your quirk.
One of the things that you mentioned that I actually really appreciate about UVA's process is that you guys actually mark people for scholarships instead of having a separate review for them. So you're like, okay, this person would be a really good scholar for this program and that way the students notified and said, hey, we think you would be a good person if you'd like to do an interview. But like, why is that important to y'all?
It's important because we have a lot of students who come to us with so many endearing qualities and so many contributions that they've already made to not only academia, but to their community, to their school at large and things like that. So we look at, you know, after we look at the transcripts and recommendations and essays, we look at their extracurriculars and we put all of that together because we do a truly holistic review process when we look at applications. But when we look at all of that, we look to say, who are our scholars going to be, whether that's our scholars programs are through the College of Arts and Sciences and through the School of Engineering specifically. And we look at, you know, depending on which school they are choosing to attend, we look at, like I said, extracurriculars, letters of recommendation, students that are just going above and beyond. Some, you know, we've had students who, you know, do extensive research, who have patents pending, who are published authors, things like that. Not saying that all of our applicants have to do those things, but just students who would contribute to the scholar community at UVA and would be exemplars as scholars at UVA. So we, like I said, we try to review those applications with care, you know, looking at what they've done and how they would contribute, and then try to offer them that to say, we want you to not only be a student at UVA, but be a part of the scholar community as well.
There's a lot of little quirks. How many quirks do you feel like you need to know about UVA before you apply? So like, are you going to be kicked out of the pool if you call it campus instead of ground?
No,
or you say, I can't wait to spend my freshman year instead of my student the other day texted me. She's like, I'm on grounds again. I was like, okay, we got it. You go to UVA. So there's a lot of insider lingo with UVA. And I would say, even as somebody who went to the law school and the business school are kind of really isolated. So I didn't know a lot of the lingo until I started working in admissions. So there's a fear that like I have to research everything. And I've seen students say, oh yeah, I heard that you have to like look at their catalog and know all their terminology, and like they're studying for it like it's a quiz. No,
not true. I can say from personal experience, when I came in as a first year at UVA, I knew nothing. And that's almost better, because then, you know, your orientation leaders and people you meet during orientation and admitted student events and things like that can go on and on and on about UVA and introduce you to the terminology. You know, there are some students who come in with knowledge if they are close to the university or if they have friends or family who attended the university, fine. But when you come in and you see somebody with a blank slate, it's almost like, the windows
Refreshing.
of opportunity have opened. I can now talk to you as much as I want about how great UVA is, and then introduce you to that quirky terminology like grounds, first year instead of freshman, those things. And then they tend to embrace it. Like when they embrace it so quickly, and it's so wonderful when you see their eyes open up. It's like the light bulbs are turning on, like, oh my gosh, it's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, to see that it's different in that way.
I feel like, Erica, how long do you feel like it takes Virginia Tech to indoctrinate, and not in a bad way, but like indoctrinate the Hokie spirit into us? I think orientation's like the first big thing.
Yeah, it's in the first, I would say, couple of months, especially if you get involved, in activities on campus, or even attending the sporting events and things like that.
Oh yeah, football game culture.
Football,
you're
game,
in.
and maybe to a lesser extent basketball games. But if you are like a football fan and you go to games, oh, you're in. You're
in. Yeah,
like all that stuff. So.
But you all do it at orientation as well?
Yes.
And now and now we have to acknowledge, Erica, they have a basketball championship now.
Yeah, I know. I do know.
So
I'm into sports, so I do know.
Let me ask you a question, because when I went, I feel like it was starting to get phased out. Do the kids still wear their sundresses and their seersuckers and stuff to the football games, or is it now t-shirts and jeans?
You see it,
okay,
but not as much as it was even when I was there.
Okay.
I still see it though.
Okay. Okay.
Especially during the warmer games, I would say. I mean, it's just not smart to wear a sundress when it's 40 degrees in Charlottesville.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you found out about UVA that you did not know about UVA until you became a student?
It was pretty much everything. Like I walked in knowing nothing, walked into the orientation, just was told, this is what we look for in students, fell in love with the place when I visited. And so when I came in, I was truly a blank slate. Like I had to figure out, we have many names. We're Cavaliers, we're Wahoos, we're Who's. We use first years instead of freshmen. We use grounds instead of campus. All of those things. I was such a sponge, just trying to soak everything in. So I knew nothing other than I'm going to come here and take some classes and join some things. But yeah, I walked in knowing nothing. So it kind of, I guess that was an easy way for the indoctrination to occur.
Same thing at Virginia Tech.
Because I didn't know much, but at the same time, it allowed me to fall in love with it too. Yeah. Because I was like, even though I'm getting introduced to all these new things, and as a first year, anywhere, your first time away from home is kind of scary, but they made me feel at home. So I, knowing nothing to knowing all of these things, it was an adjustment period for sure, but a positive one.
Yeah. I thought that it was Mayflower money. Like everybody's parents were descendants of the first people who stepped off the boat of this country, because the first experience I had at UVA was a football game, and I'm looking at all these people with sundresses and stuff, and Virginia Tech, we're not wearing that.
As a football girl, it took me a long time.
Yeah.
To get used to that. And I will say I never did that. So if anything, I'd wear my pearl studs.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah, I thought
that's a nice compromise.
Yeah, I thought that like this school is going to be a bunch of rich kids, like driving, like I don't know. I thought it was like the Virginia Clueless. You know what I'm saying? Where it was like they were going to pull up in their BMWs, and I was surprised to see, even in the law school, and also as somebody who's been placing students there, how many people from different walks of life come to UVA. And I'm sure like everybody's going to say, and we all say this, like we're going to get better at diversity, but I do feel like UVA is one of the institutions that puts its money where its mouth is and says, not only do we want to see more diversity, and not only do we want to see, even students, my students with disabilities are like, not only do we want to accommodate you, we're going to reach out and let you know that we want to accommodate you. We're going to put you in contact with this person to make sure that you get the proper accommodation. This is a good fit. But also, we're going to make sure that you feel valued in this process. And if you are somebody who can bring something to the community, we're going to essentially, I don't want to say pay you to come, but like incentivize you to come, right?
Yeah.
So, but the other thing that always shocks me about UVA is you have all of these scholarships, right? And I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not going to say you all were the first, but I would say UVA for me was a school that was doing like living learning communities before it became like everybody was doing it. Like now everybody has a living learning community, but everybody has their own little community. So there's a way where you have like the UVA spirit, but then you also maintain and also nurture your existing identity. Would you agree with that?
I would. It's historical and it's traditional. Just because that was the Jeffersonian ideal of how education should be. That was the reasoning behind the conception of the lawn. So the rotunda was originally a library, and the lawn was where students and professors lived together. So, and they were all, on the lawn down the hill from the rotunda. So the idea was that students and professors would live and learn together. So since its inception, the University of Virginia has, is built upon a living learning community. And that is still the case today on the lawn. Students live in the lawn rooms. Fourth years live in the lawn rooms. You have to apply. It's considered an honor. Students who have greatly contributed to the UVA community apply and earn rooms on the lawn. But then also in each of the pavilions, a professor or a school dean will live in those. And so, professors will often open up their homes literally to students to come and do chats. They may hold class in their living room sometimes if they're holding small seminars. But, after obviously the university got bigger, it's continued that way. So professors are very eager to not only, chat with you during office hours, but have coffee, have dinner, things like that you may not necessarily get everywhere, but just because it's been ingrained in UVA culture for such a long time, it still continues, and students take advantage of it as they should.
Erica, as a parent, you're hearing this, and what are you thinking?
Wow, I'm impressed by that. I can only think of a couple of times where outside of office hours or class that I had any sort of, just heart-to-heart conversations with professors. It was always either in office hours or, during class times, but not coffee or dinner. Other than the wines and vines class, we did have
Erica took a wine course. Erica took a wine course and a flower arrangement course, right?
Yeah, I did.
Ooh.
And I needed some fun electives to balance things out.
I don't blame you.
Because she is an engineering gal. So I talked about this last week. I always said to her, I was like, it was so nice and light and fun, because I was in humanities. And so we were just reading and talking and arguing and, debating, and they're in the trenches. I never saw the engineering students, so I didn't know that they were suffering.
It's the same with me. I saw my e-school friends, and we abbreviate everything at UVA too.
Oh, that's true.
So I would see my e-school friends after class hours, maybe in the dining hall,
right?
At rehearsals, at parties and things. But during the day,
no. No,
they kept us in a dungeon at.
We had a 3-hour class, and I'm like, how? Like, did you even have a break during that class? How did somebody? Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get sidetracked. We'll talk about that later. But one of the unique things I feel like about UVA in general is, and this was my experience as a law student that I also see now translated in the undergrad experiences. Like we had the big classes, right? So we had our, like for us, we were in sections. So it was 30 people per section, and you did every class with your section, right? So we would have a 3-section class, a 2-section class, and a 1-section class, right? And the 1-section class was with our professor who taught us both parts of the year. But I think the unique thing that I see about UVA is like, yes, it's a pretty large campus. How many students do you all have now?
It's approximately 18,000 undergraduates.
Okay, I thought you were about to say a whole number. I was like, what? I thought you were about to say 1,800, 900.
No, I'm not.
18,922. And one of them graduated 3 days ago. No, but it's a large campus, but it also feels really small and intimate at times. And there's just this natural, I don't know what Charlottesville and UVA cultivates, but it's like, it's an expectation that we're going to engage in conversations. Was that your experience as well?
Yes.
Okay.
It allows you the opportunity to be introverted, but it definitely encourages community. Yeah.
And I feel like my introverted friends, like there were boundaries, right? Like they got their boundaries respected, but they also knew when they wanted to speak up and knew when it was expected and, things like that. Okay, let's get into the admission side. Okay.
Wait, can I ask one question?
Yes, Erica. Of course.
I'm going to go back to something you mentioned earlier, Catrina, about how you felt so welcomed when you started at UVA. Other than orientation, what does UVA do to help students get acclimated and feel welcome?
So prior to orientation, when you discover that you've been admitted, we hold admitted student events. So this is either after or before you've decided to matriculate, right? So students who applied early decision, that was binding. So we know they're coming, right? Early action, they were notified a couple of months ago. So some may have matriculated already. Some may be still making their decisions. And then regular decision applicants, like I said, won't be notified until Friday. But wherever you are in the process, we have admitted student events. So that can range from tours, admitted student tours. So if you have never visited UVA before, we have tours specifically for admitted students and families where we don't go over like how to get in. We go over, this is what life is like here. We also have now, post-COVID, we have online events, virtual webinars for admitted students who may not be able to travel to UVA for various reasons, about what it's like to live at UVA, what it's like to learn, what it's like to lead, how you can get involved, things like that. And then we also have admitted student events that we call Days on the Lawn, which are days when students can come, have sessions with their school. So if you apply to College of Arts and Sciences, engineering, nursing, kinesiology, architecture, what have you, you get to hear from faculty from those schools. You get to, the students get to meet each other, parents get to meet each other. We have parent panels with representation from various offices on grounds and a student panel with the same. Often it's student leadership too incorporated on those panels. We allow students and families to eat in the dining hall just so they can experience that. I'm not sure why they're fascinated by that, but sure.
Everybody is.
Absolutely.
So popular. They get to eat in the dining hall, things like that, and just various programming. And then there's a resource fair where you get to see all of the different resources. It's not a student activities fair per se, but it's just the resources from different offices on grounds. And you get some swag, you get a bag, and you get some things, and you go on your way. And for a lot of students, that can be the deciding factor. Getting to experience all of those things at one time and kind of get ingratiated into the UVA community for 8 hours. It's helpful when, you visited, but you don't really get that context because you come, you sit in a session from us, you go on a tour, and then we're like, look, and then for an admitted student event, it's more intimate. Days on the lawn, there's so many things going on, and it's like a big pep rally for a day, where our student leaders are just so excited. They're like, please come to UVA. So for a lot of students, that's the deciding factor when they're trying to figure out where they want to go. They reflect on, gosh, I had such a great time at X event, at Days on the Lawn or what have you, and this is where I want to be.
Nice. Do you remember your Days on the Lawn? Did you do Days on the Lawn?
I did. I did Spring Fling. Okay. So Spring Fling and Spring Blast is something that my team puts on. I'm on the outreach team. Okay. So in admissions. So my team is responsible for attracting students from various walks of life to UVA, diversity in all of its forms. So whether that's across racial and ethnic lines or socioeconomic diversity, what have you. So we put on Spring Fling, which is for students who identify as Black or African American, and then Spring Blast for students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx. And we, you have all of the sessions that a traditional Days on the Lawn session would have, but you also get introduced to the Black community and the Latinx community at UVA, respectively. You get to meet the Dean of the Office of African American Affairs. You get to kind of, meet student leaders from organization, go to events. I know this year, the Latinx Student Center is going to host a big event party during Spring Blast, and Spring Fling, same thing. They're happening on the same day. When I went to Spring Fling, before things got complicated with the universe, we were able to spend the night with current students and kind of shadow them for a day.
That's really cool.
We would be able to go to class, and I went to gospel choir rehearsal, and you kind of literally get to live the life of a student as a prospective student. And, it happened over a weekend. So I remember hosting a student, and they came with me to a party. Again, in the mid 2000s, that was okay. But now,
and it was a chess party too. You guys were playing chess.
Of course.
So I just
we didn't do that part, the chess thing.
No.
No.
We were playing chess and playing Scrabble.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Yeah, I'm a parent, which means I was not born yesterday. But that's your story. Stick to it.
Those types of events. We of course since COVID kind of wiped all of that out. So we're trying to build that up again. Last year was our first in-person Spring Fling and Blast since the pandemic. So just trying to bring back the spirit of Spring Fling and Blast to what it was, but still making it a valuable, worthwhile experience, since students and families are traveling to come experience that with us. So even though the spending the night component is not there currently, we still try to connect them with current students and get them to experience life at UVA, even if it's for only 8 hours, as opposed to, a Friday, Saturday. Yeah.
So was that was a casualty of COVID or other things, the whole stay?
It was as a lawyer, I'm like, so much liability.
It's a casualty of COVID. It's the liability piece, just because I was 18 when when Spring Fling happened because of my birthday. But if you have students who are under the age of 18 staying with current students who are over the age of 18, and just the liability that comes along with that, we can do it. It can happen. It's not that will never happen again. It's just that we have to plan a year in advance to make sure that it can happen and be done the right way, so that we can put on a successful event, cutting through all the red tape without having any issues. So it's this year, just because of not knowing what COVID protocols were going to look like, last year this time, and all of that. We're like, well, if we want to do that for next year, we need to start planning for it as soon as Days on the Lawns finishes this year. So that's what we're planning to do, working with our offices of youth protection, just trying to make sure that we have all of those things, all of the details ironed out before we present that, because students want to do it. It's just these students on grounds right now never got to experience that because these students were COVID, I mean, most of their collegiate experience was during the pandemic. So
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I know for me that an experience very much like that at Tech is what took me over the edge in terms of making it my number one. And,
what part of the experience closed you?
The
party.
I refuse to answer on the my kid.
Catrina, do you remember the moment you were like, "This is it. This is where I'm going to go"?
Yes.
Okay, what was that?
It was really early. I'm a very I make
decisive
quick decisions. Yeah. It was during my tour.
Okay.
I went on tour. It was August before my senior year.
Okay. It was hot.
It was hot.
That's incredible.
It was my first college visit too.
Okay.
My eyes were set on, and I'm from Virginia, but my eyes were set on Stanford, Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, Princeton. I was looking everywhere else but a school in Virginia until one day my dad said, "Let's go visit the University of Virginia." I said, "Where's that?" He said, "Charlottesville." I was like, "Where is that?" I don't know where that is. We went up there. I sat in the information session. Dean Gregory gave my session, who I ended up working with when I was a student at UVA, oddly enough. She gave the session. She's like, "This is what we look for in applications." And in my head, I'm going like, check. I have all that stuff. Okay. And then we went on a tour and walked around grounds. And then I remember the moment we were crossing the bridge towards the end of the tour. And my mom looked at me and she said, "What do you think?" So what do you think? I said, "I'm going to school here."
Aww.
She was like, "I'm sorry, what?" She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm going to school here." Like, absolutely. Like, my mind was made up. And so, of course, she's like, "Okay, so should we visit some other places? I just don't want you to just, like, this is the first place you've been. I want you to look at other places too." I'm like, "Sure." So I visited a couple of other schools. And then after that, I said, nothing's changing my mind. Nothing has wowed me more than what I saw at UVA. And I applied early decision, which is binding. So my application was due November 1st. I got my letter the day after Thanksgiving. So I was like, my thing is too, if I can get it over with, I am. So I applied early decision to take all the guesswork out of it. If I get in, great. If I don't, then I know I have more work to do, right? But I was admitted, and from November 26th on, like I was coasting through my senior year. You know what I mean? I knew where I was going to school.
Seniors don't look at that. Don't hear that. We don't want you to drop it off.
But I coasted because, like, getting good grades in my home was not a hope, it was an expectation, right? So that in my letter it said, "You've been admitted, we will be asking for your mid-year grades and your final grades. Please remind," in so many words, just a reminder that we can rescind our decision if we expect you to come in with the grades that we admitted you with. So continue on with your senior year, as you would have had you not heard from us.
Yes.
Knowing that we're going to check on you, and we still do that. I'm the person that does that, actually. We still do that. So that is also a thing. When I was an educator, I would tell my students, you realize that you can't develop senioritis, right? Because the schools that you applied to are going to see your first semester grades and your final grades. So if you trail off, they're going to contact you because you didn't finish high school with the grades that they admitted you with. And because UVA is so competitive now, and we've become a selective university just because of the number of applications we receive versus the number of first-year spots we have, it's imperative that students keep that in mind, because if we admitted you at this level and we weren't able to admit students who were almost at that level, you can't, dip below what you came in with.
Can I ask you that? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what do those numbers look like? You said you've got a number of first year slots and you have this pool. What's that percentage?
So last year was our largest first year class to date. So
Wait, can I ask you what contributed to that?
The number of
really good applicants.
I'll tell you, yeah, it's last year we had a record-breaking year with the number of applications we received. It was a little bit over 51,000. And we offered admission to about 9,000 students. And we ended up with about 4,100 students that matriculated. Now, obviously we over admit, knowing that some students are going to turn us down, right? But we were not expecting the yield that we got. So this year, based on housing, right? We only have a certain number of first year housing areas. And so housing was like, excuse us, we tone it down a notch. This year we're going to offer a few hundred less just because of that. But this year we also had a record-breaking year. We increased our number of applications by 10%. We're up to 56,000 applications this year.
Wow.
And I always tell students when I go on high school visits or do fairs, we cannot control the number of applications we get, but we have to maintain a certain number of first year spots that we can't go over. So, if our application numbers continue to increase, then the selectivity of UVA, the percentage of students to whom we're able to offer admission is going to decrease. Overall last year it was about 18%. This year, because we had more applications, I feel like it's closer to 15%, not lower. So, I always share those percentages too, just to tell students to keep in mind, UVA is selective. So, you can only put down what you know to be true about your life on your application, your grades, your extracurriculars, and just present the best version of you. When you apply to school, hope for a yes, but be prepared to pivot if you get a different response, like knowing that you will find a home somewhere. But just, knowing the nature of applying to selective schools is that we don't like turning students down who really want to. That's not the fun part of my job, but it's a reality. So, I always just tell students, hope for a yes, but be equally as prepared for a different response, knowing that, hey, if I don't get in here, then I'm going to apply to here, knowing that the door isn't closed because you could transfer to UVA or come to UVA as a grad student, what have you. So all of those things.
And one thing that I don't feel like students really understand is like a lot of students, when they get their UVA letter back and it's a no, and as a member of the waitlist 2002 class of UVA, who went to Virginia Tech and was like, no, you know what, I can make this work. Like I saw the Torg Bridge. Bridges are our common theme. I was like, this is it. But a lot of students will start looking back at every choice and being like, I should have done this. I should have done this. How many students would you say, not qualified? I don't know how to frame this, but one of the things that I found out in admissions that shocked me was how many students are qualified and rejected, right? How often is it you messed up and you shouldn't have done that thing? Like you shouldn't have taken that class. You should have taken this class. And how often is it you're a great student, but our university needs something different?
I would say the latter is more common. And it's not necessarily the university needing something different. It's we just don't have room for all of the qualified applicants that we get we see so many students who are deserving of admission. And, we are tasked with making decisions on who those students should be. And when you look at, students from literally all walks of life, all different circumstances, all types of corners of the world, all 50 states, and I believe it's 96, 98 countries.
Wow.
You have to, our job is hard. It's not easy to, look at these applications and go, oh my goodness, this student is so amazing, but I can't, at a certain point, decisions have to be made. So it's just, we literally don't have room for everybody that I would love to admit, so that's why we have a deferral process. That's why we have a wait list. Like, we would love to have you if there's room. So it just, it's not necessarily, like I said, university wanting something different. It's, we want you,
but the housing's not there. So students seem to believe in like what's perpetuated, especially as somebody who comes from the test prep industry, is there are two students, both are equal, and you're sitting there with both pieces of paper and you're like, you, and then you're like, and not you. How often can you tell us about the review process?
Sure. I don't compare students because I can't. The only time I see students grouped together if they come from the same school.
Okay.
There, I see them in a school group because I'm assessing, I will see all of those students in a school group, not necessarily at the same time either, right? Because we have 3 different rounds. So I will see them, in a school group. Like I said, it's the only time I see them together. We take applications one by one.
Okay.
I open a student's application. I look at school profile and transcript.
Okay. Can you tell everybody what a school profile is?
Sure.
I know.
So your school counselor will send us your school profile. So that will basically tell us where your school is located, how many students are in your school, how many students are in your class, how your school grades, if your school does class rank, how they weight classes, because not every school weighs classes the same way, what classes are offered and at what level, right? So then coupled with that, we are sent your transcript, and your transcript will tell us, based on what is offered and what are within the parameters of possibility at your school, what have you elected to take over the course of 4 years? So currently, and truthfully, we look at what are the top level courses that are offered at your school. What's the highest level of each of the course, and how many years of world language can you take? And what, that's what's usually reported. The core classes, so that's math, science, English, and social studies. And then your world languages. What is the most challenging coursework available to you? And out of what's available to you, what have you elected to take? And then that's how we look at your transcript. We want to see students who are challenging themselves academically. You don't have to have straight A pluses. However, we do want you to have excellent grades, and we do want you to be challenging yourself. So, obviously 9th grade year, everybody's trying to figure it out. You can't take AP classes or dual enrollment or IB, full IB classes your freshman year. But, are you taking AP? If you're in an IB program, are you in the HL instead of the SL? If world language is offered to you through years 4, 5, and 6, are you taking that? Because there is a world language requirement at the University of Virginia. You have a gap as a former Spanish teacher. If you have a gap, it will be harder for you to complete those 12 credits than if you have gone through the AP level, or at least through level 4, and you kind of, you have, even if you have a minimal gap, it'll be easier for you to recover that, those second language acquisition skills than it would be if you only went through level 2. And sometimes what sets students apart, especially if they're out of state, is that world language requirement. Just because if you're going into the College of Arts and Sciences, you know, you're going to have those 12 credits of world language to, you know, to get your bachelor's degree. So we look at school profile and transcript. Then we look at your letters of recommendation. All students have one from a teacher. We don't require a letter of recommendation from a school counselor because not
equity, access.
Most school counselors will send one in some way, shape, or form, but it's not required. Just because we know, depending on the school that you attend and given the caseload that some counselors have, they may not have the capacity to take the care to write, you know, letters of recommendation for all 450 of their students. But we require one from a teacher. And then we also look at your involvement. How do you occupy your time outside of school hours? So whether that's extracurricular activities, whether that's a job, community service, volunteer work, do you take care of do you have family responsibilities? We just want to know how you occupy your time. And then your essays, the personal essay, which is common to every Common App user, your personal, whatever you want to write about. And then for UVA, we have 2 supplementals. This year we have 2 supplementals. And I always tell students too, we don't track demonstrated interest, meaning we don't do interviews. Letters of continued interest for us are not necessary because we don't track, you know, how many times you visit, how many times you call, all of those things. Some schools do, but we don't. And we don't interview. So without being able to speak with you and put a face to a name, we want to be able to get a true assessment of who you are, not only as a student, but as a person, through the free form versions of your application. So that's through your involvement outside of school, inside of school and outside of school, and through your essays, because your transcript, that is what it is, right? The classes you've taken and are taking, and that's, most of that is behind you because that's out of your control. But how you articulate yourself in an essay and how you choose to dedicate your time outside of school, after school and outside of school, you know, is really frames for us who you are as a person, who you are as a student, and how you would contribute to the UVA community as a whole. So that's and I do that one by one. So, you know, when people ask, like, why does it take so long? That's why, because we are looking at every application. And like I said earlier, sometimes more than once, to truly get a sense of building a class and, you know, not only, you know, students from various backgrounds and various communities, but also who is going to actively contribute to UVA, not only be a stellar student, but also, you know, a great Cavalier community member. You know,
because there's an expectation of involvement at UVA. Not necessarily like you have to be like a student leader, but like they want you to be a part of the community, because I think one of the cool things about UVA is it's really run by the students, but not in a Lord of the Flies way, to be clear, in a very, you know, democratic and also just harvesting leadership early kind of way. And so that, to me, that's one of the things when I'm looking for students for UVA, and I always say, like, there's a college out there looking for you. When I'm looking for a student at UVA, it's a student that's always involved in something and just can't seem to help it. It's like they just can't burn off the energy.
How
many go ahead.
No, I was just going to say student self-governance. Is what that is. So that's another Jeffersonian ideal, that students essentially govern themselves, and faculty will serve as advisors, but that's it. So from, you know, we have over 800 student organizations, whether that's, you know, whether that's Greek life or volunteer organizations or clubs, organizations, affinity groups, dance troops, acapella groups, what have you. Honor committee, judiciary committee, class councils, fourth year trustees, all of those things are run by students. So if you commit an honor violation, it's a student honor committee, and there's a student honor chair. Judiciary board making, governing laws for students at UVA, students do that. It really hones in those leadership skills that you'll need once you matriculate out of UVA and into society, because you've been doing it on your own since you got to UVA. And, depending on what you choose to involve yourself with and how much, you may have a little, you may have a lot, but you'll get some of it at a certain point in your 4 years or however many you spend at UVA. You'll get some of it no matter where you are. Now, you don't have to be involved in everything, but typically first years tend to bite off more than they can chew. They'll go to a student resource fair, and all of those organizations have a table, and they're so overwhelmed that they join 25. And by the time they graduate, they may be truly dedicated to maybe 6 or 7, if that. So depending on how much involved you want to be, you can, but you have to figure out how to be a student first and then fit in all of the fun stuff.
One thing I hear a lot about UVA is they don't like this, they do like this. So I hear that you have to take all APs, all IBs, all dual enrollment, all whatever. You have to be the president of everything. You can't just be a secretary. No. You have to work your way up to president. You have to get more involved. They actually do care about the SAT. Thoughts?
I'll address the first part first.
And you have to take calc and pre-calc.
That is true.
Okay.
And I say that only because calculus is the baseline math at UVA.
Okay.
There's statistics and calculus. Especially if you want to go into engineering, that's almost a prerequisite because of how the engineering program, starts off. They want you to have a solid foundation in calculus and physics prior to coming in, just because of, how the program is set up.
College of Arts and Sciences, though?
College of Arts and Sciences, I see students taking, again, when we look at what does your school offer? If your school's highest math is pre-calc,
okay,
fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if your highest math is either calculus or stats, we don't have a preference. If you choose to take AP stat, I took AP stat instead of AP calc, knowing that I couldn't avoid calculus getting to UVA, but I just did not want to take it in high school. So,
do you regret
the
that?
teacher was weird. I heard the teacher was weird. That's the true reason.
Okay, but do you regret waiting until UVA to take calculus?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't, because like you were saying earlier, we had lecture, and then we had a smaller section that was managed by a TA, where we could kind of break down what happened in the lecture and get questions answered and go over homework and things like that. So that more specialized attention that even though it's a semester in high school, I probably wouldn't have, and I'm a math nerd. I still wouldn't
Erica too.
I took AP Stat A because one of my favorite teachers was teaching it, and he taught me my junior year, but also I just didn't want to take calculus. I was like, I'm going to avoid this. I don't like it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
So, but getting to UVA, I was fine when I took it there. But yeah, if your school's highest math is pre-calc, that's fine. You don't need to go, self-enroll at a local community college to get calculus just because you feel like you have to have it. No.
Yeah.
If your school offers calculus or physics, you need to take it.
Okay.
Yes.
But if you're or stat.
Calculus or statistics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what I said.
Calculus, yeah.
That's what you said.
Okay.
Okay.
But physics is a must if it's offered.
Yeah.
Physics is a must if it's offered, if you plan on applying to the School of Engineering.
Okay.
If you're not, and physics is not your thing, and you want to do AP Bio or AP Chem or something, like, that's fine too. But if you're going into engineering, they want all of their students coming in to have physics at some level.
Yeah, they don't want the first exposure to be. the first time you're in class
Right.
and hit in the face
Right.
of it.
But I heard you say AP, AP, AP.
So how many AP? Yeah, like does it have to be everything is AP, or can a student say, you know what, I want to excel in this particular area? Like I like math and science. I hate English.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to focus all my energy on advanced level math, science, and whatever else I feel like I can stretch in, but not this particular.
That's totally normal.
Okay.
I tell students, when you build your schedule, be practical, do what's within your wheelhouse, challenge yourself to a degree, but don't build a schedule that will stress you out before September is over. I've seen students take 7 out of 7 classes at the AP level. If you can manage that, more power to you. But if you know that you are not I don't want to take 7 AP classes. I want to do show choir. I want to take psychology. I want to go to the tech center. Do those things, right? But if you are strong in a subject, I would say not to shy away from the top level.
Okay.
And to the next degree, don't backtrack on yourself. So if you've been taking the top level, let's say starting sophomore year, junior year, don't pump the brakes your senior year.
Yeah.
Keep
Great
the
manipulate.
consistency.
Yeah.
And
I see that all the time.
Yeah. And if you haven't been taking challenging coursework, begin to. And the only reason why we say that is because UVA coursework is challenging. UVA professors expect a lot out of you and expect you to come in at a certain level. And we want you to be aptly prepared for that. So when we look at the transcript, we have to look at it with a certain level of scrutiny, only because we don't want to set you up, you know what I mean, to be in an academic firestorm, if you will, from week 1. You're going to have a rough patch. You're going to have an adjustment period for sure. But we want you to come in and confidently, go to class and do the work at the level at which it's taught. So that's why we have to look at things with a fine-tooth comb sometimes when it comes to the transcript, because we want to make sure that you're challenging yourself enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one thing that I'm hearing a lot is, especially, and I would say this actually does happen at the barbecues and the barbershop and the hair salon, is just because they say it's optional doesn't mean they don't want it. Like if you really want it, you're doing everything. And that includes the SAT and ACT. Can you tell us, does the process for a review change if a student does not submit the SAT and ACT to UVA? No. And then also, why is it that you all feel confident that you can make decisions with or without it?
I always frame it this way.
Okay.
An SAT or an ACT is a test, a one-time snapshot of your ability on those 2 areas on a particular day, in a particular month, at a particular time. A 3-hour time frame, or however long it takes to take the SAT now.
4 to 5.
Right.
Yeah.
However, your transcript gives us your body of work over 4 years, which is a better exemplar, not only of who you are, but how you've grown over 4 years. That tells more of a story than a snapshot of a 4-hour time window in which you could have had a number of things going on. And you know what I mean? Even though we use the super score for SAT, meaning if you take the score twice, we'll take the best of the 2. Yeah. The transcript tells me more than that one-time score. So if you submit a score, we're test optional, and we'll be test optional for fall 2024 and fall 2025. So for the next 2 years, we will be test optional. If you submit it, we see it. If you don't, we won't.
Even if it's on the transcript?
I'll see it, But even if somebody submits a test score, I look at it and then I move on, because like I said, all of those other portions of the application tell so much more about you than that one test score. Some people are not good test takers. Some, have test anxiety, or whatever the case may be surrounding, an SAT or ACT score. But your body of work over 4 years tells me more about your journey and your story as an academic than a test score. If you want to submit your score because you feel it would add something to your application, do it. If for whatever reason you get your score back, you're not feeling it, you don't have to submit it. That's why, aside from the pandemic screwing a lot of things up, that's why we decided to go test optional, so students can have that wiggle room and make that choice for themselves.
Right. And I also tell people, you don't have to make that decision in isolation. You could be talking to admissions. And I think a lot of students are hesitant because they're like, well, I don't like the score and maybe I should take it again. And I'm like, well, before you take it again, talk to the colleges actually on your list, because I'll hear students say, oh, it's a 1400. And for UVA, I definitely need a 1500. And I'll tell them, and I know this is not a good thing to hear, but I'm like, I know 1500s that were rejected at UVA. Like a 1500 is not going to secure, a 1600 is not going to secure your space. Like, you're thinking this one thing is going to secure your spot into UVA, but what if you spend all of your time doing that and you don't do meaningful activities that really show us who you are? And as a result, you get a 1600, but we don't see the true you. And so how often, I just feel like a lot of students are, Erica, I know you're wrestling with this decision right now. And
we encourage students to take it at least once. Because it's a test meant to assess college readiness, right? That's essentially what it is.
Allegedly,
because there are a lot of, anyway.
We could go into you and I are like, we could go into this all.
It is it is allegedly meant to assess college readiness at some level, right? So we encourage students to take the test at least once, just to see, what your score will be. I'm sure that at some point you and your high school will take the PSAT.
Yes, they've done that.
Yeah. Because I think they're starting to require schools to give it now to everybody. So that's the way it was, when I was in the school. So yeah, you have to take the PSAT, but take the SAT at least once. And if you feel like, okay, this is a good, decent score, take it again. If you are grappling with whether or not you want to submit your scores, I would say take the test twice. Any more than that, I feel, is a bit egregious. So take it, once to see where you are, have that be your starting point, and then take it again. More often than not, your score will vary. It probably will vary the second time you take it, depending on your mood that day, what happened the night before, the temperature in the room, all of those.
Whether you need to go to the bathroom, that's like the number one thing I tell the students. Make sure you go to the bathroom.
If you need to go in the middle of section 3 and you don't have another break for 45 minutes, all of those things could happen. But take it at least once, but I wouldn't say more than twice, because then you'll start to stress yourself out unnecessarily. But you do have to make the choice before you submit your application. Whether or not you want to, for your scores to be considered.
And so, all things being equal, and I know every admissions officer hates that phrase because there's no situation that all things are equal, but you have like 2 Lindsay Lohans applying, separated at birth, and one has a higher SAT score. They're like, the way that I was taught as somebody in test prep who came through test prep first was every time you're going to want the higher score, because that's the thing that's going to be like, okay, we're taking this twin instead of this twin. No? How many times has it come down to a score for you?
Never.
Oh, okay. Well,
that answers that.
and I'll explain that. As a true lover of numbers and data, as a numbers don't mean anything if you don't have context behind them. I could give you a whole bunch of numbers and that's amazing. But that doesn't give me context, which is why I say, if you want to submit your test score, that's fine. But that's also why we look at your transcript class by class and course by course and grade by grade. That is also why I say, which is true, we do not have a standard GPA, a cutoff, a standard. It doesn't exist because GPA alone doesn't tell me anything about your classes or your grades. And not all schools calculate GPA. Not all schools calculate GPA the same way. Some use a 4-point scale. Some use a 10-point scale. Some use a 16-point scale. Some use a 100-point scale. It varies so much that there's no way that we can create a table or a formula to kind of make that a universal number for everyone. Mm-hmm. So that's why we look at everybody's application individually, and we look at what your school offers you, how your school does things, mm-hmm. and then assess you based on that. Because I can't compare a student from this school who calculates GPA on a 4-point scale and has these types of classes, and a student who's in a completely different program at a different school, mm-hmm. where they have a 100-point scale. You know what I mean? So yeah. The numbers, I could give you an arbitrary number. I have a 4.2 GPA. And I just shake my head because I'm like, that's amazing, but I don't know what that means.
Right.
Unless I have the rest of the data in front of me okay, this is what a 4.2 means at that school. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's why we don't have a standard GPA. That's why SAT score is fine, but that alone won't make or break anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Final 3 questions, because we could talk to you forever. Feel free to come back to the shop. Sure. I always keep inviting people back. Okay. Erica, I'm going to do my final 3. If you have one, jump in. We have a saying here, everything you know about admissions is a lie. Biggest misconception about UVA admissions or UVA in general?
Oh, gosh. I would say what I just told you. The GPA thing.
Yeah.
We often get asked, what's your standard GPA? What's your mid GPA?
And you know what?
What is it? You have one. You do. And I promise you don't.
No, and I think that's the thing is like students feel like you're hiding the ball. And I feel like as a lawyer, I get it because it's like, mm-hmm. oh, we ran a red light. Was that what I'm like, mm-hmm. okay, you ran a red light where? In what state? In what context? Mm-hmm. Was it an emergency? Were you an emergency? Like there's a lot of context that has mm-hmm. to be added. And I think students believe that admissions officers are deliberately trying not to be transparent when in reality, they're like, you're asking me, is 4.4 mm-hmm. good? And I don't know if it's out of 16 or out of 5. I don't know what you took.
Right.
So yeah, I can see the frustration with that. You said that when you were going through your first session that they listed out the traits of what they're looking for UVA. Can you tell mm-hmm. us what you're looking for and what you feel like when you're looking at an application, you're like, this is a UVA student?
That was my question because she said check, and I wrote that down.
I wrote that down too. I have
what
it
are
right
the check
here.
marks now?
Yeah, what are the check marks?
For me, yeah. You're looking for a student who, like I said, has challenged themselves academically. Somebody who, has a like an innate quest for knowledge, if you will, not necessarily a love of learning in all subjects, but somebody who is academically sound, but also somebody who teachers think well about, that, somebody who is a participant in their school community or in their community in some way, shape, or form, whether that be with their family, like I said, with the community organization, and somebody who can really paint a picture of, who they are as a person. Somebody who we feel would be an active contributor to UVA community, but not only active, but somebody who will help bring life to UVA community and be an excellent a classmate, an excellent student, an excellent community member, all things encompassing. So, there are a lot of students with great grades, right? And there are a lot of students who are in everything. You call them like Mr. or Miss everything, right? Because you see them doing all these things. But you do come across these students who are like the perfect mesh of the two. I can do school well because, depending on who you are, you may or may not be able to do school easily, right? That for some people it comes naturally, and some, they have to study really hard. Either way is fine. But it's the how you articulate yourself in an essay, what you're passionate about, your life story, what makes you, that separates, if two students have the same transcript, like the exact same transcript, the exact same grades, the exact same everything on the data side, what have you done? What are you doing? What do your teachers say about you? How do you articulate yourself? That is where I get to know you as a person. And that's when you're like, well, not only are they great here, but they're also great here.
Yeah.
And that's when
there's a texture.
It's texturized. Yes. It's not just, numbers on a paper, which are helpful numbers, but it's the free verse piece that paints the picture.
And I think that's the biggest misconception, because I have students that'll say, well, I got a C in calculus. Like, I knew it was going to be hard. And but now I don't feel like I can apply to UVA. And I'm like, honestly, like, to me, that's the best person to write your letter of recommendation. If you're staying after class, if you're working with them. I think my C was my letter of recommendation for chemistry. It was like, this girl in chemistry, please don't ever give her an opportunity to do anything in chemistry, but outside of chemistry, like she earned that C. So I applied to UVA with a C. I got waitlisted class of 2022, which means, according to you, they wanted me, but they didn't have a spot for me, right? So I think and I see students who don't have this perfect transcript get in, and some students who have a perfect everything, they're like, and they have this expectation, I'm going to get this because and they're like, well, this other college that's higher than them accepted me. And I'm like, right, but this is UVA. I'm like, UVA has a very distinct culture, and you're probably going to be really happy at this other college. That's why they accepted you. And I don't think you were going to be happy at UVA, because they're not looking for perfection. They're looking for, there's something intangible about your model where I actually think you guys truly think about what is a student bringing to us, and how could we help guide them? Does that make sense?
No, that's exactly right.
Okay. Last question. So I tell my students to always ask their admissions officers, because, as you know, admissions officers, we know everybody. Like, we talk to everybody. We see what other people are doing. I always say there's a college out there looking for you. Okay. But UVA is selective, we know. So what other colleges do you feel like have similar characteristics that students that are looking at UVA should also be looking at?
I say, whenever I talk to my kids, I would tell them this. They would ask me, where should I go to school? When I say kids, I mean my students.
Yeah, same. And we get in trouble now for saying that. Like, they're like, you can't infantize. I'm like, I'm sorry, but those are my babies.
Yeah, always. I always say schools that have the same thing as UVA, it depends on what you're looking for.
Okay.
You're going to get a college education at any university you choose to attend. It's just a matter of, first, what you want to study. If what you want to study is not offered at that school, you should not apply. Don't try to fit a round peg into a square hole. Okay. Or square peg into a round hole, whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
Both. I'm tired. Don't do that. if it doesn't offer, like UVA is a liberal arts school, so we don't have criminal justice. We don't have, some of the majors that some students come to us praying that we have. And it's like, I'm not going to lie to you, especially at these college fairs and things where kids come up to me bright eyed and I'm like, do you have this? And I have to say, well, no, we don't, so start with, what do I want to do?
Right.
Or if you don't know, that's cool too. But if you start out with what you want to do, then you can figure out, okay, what schools have that? Mm-hmm. Then my suggestion would be to go put yourself in the space, go visit. Because that place is going to be your home away from home, right? For 4 years of your life or 2 years of your life if you transfer. So you need to be in the space and see, is this school a good fit for me? Right. On paper, it's great. But when I get up here, I'm like, I don't like that, or that. Mm-hmm. Then you start making more choices. I would say James Madison University, the for environmental reasons is kind of the same because JMU's in the mountains. Mm-hmm. It's an hour away from Charlottesville. So it's 2 hours away from the Richmond area, probably like 3 hours away from Northern Virginia, depending
2 hours actually, because we go a different route.
Yeah. It's Charlottesville is not it's not rural. It's more suburban. Well, it's actually all three. Because the city of Charlottesville is a city area, and then you have the county of Albemarle, and then you have the county of Albemarle, where The Rock just bought a farm. So you have all of those things. You could apply to Virginia Tech if you want to be, in like a big school. But, Virginia Tech is a great example of a school. It's our rival, yes, but they have majors that we don't have and vice versa, right? So depending on what you want to major in, if you want to be in a certain area but stay in the state, Virginia Tech is for you. Or if you're thinking, we require students to live on grounds first year and you can't have your car because of space. Then you could be thinking, well, I want to stay closer to home. So if you want to go to a more commuter school where you can kind of live at home and have freedom, that's George Mason, right? Because George Mason has a big commuter population. Or I want like the academic challenges of UVA, but I want to take it to the next level. Then that's your Ivies, right? So like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, or I want an Ivy in the middle of a city. That's Columbia. So you have.
And I would say out of all the Ivies, Brown would be the one that I would consider closest to you all, like in terms of quirky, We have a couple of colleagues in my office that used to work at Brown, and the dean of admissions, his son is a first year at Brown. It really depends on, don't try to make a college fit you. Right.
You have to ask the question, what do you have to offer me? Because you're in the driver's seat. You have the opportunity to kind of shape and mold what your college application process and experience looks like. And it should be catered to you and what you want to do with your life and how you want to spend those 4 years of your life. So don't try to make a school fit you because, I would beg to say your parents, but my parents went to VCU and I had zero interest in going to VCU, and it didn't hurt their feelings because they said, Catrina, it's about you. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? So your voice has to be the loudest.
And I would say that's true.
When it comes to fit, when it comes to academics, when it comes to everything, you have to be comfortable when all is said and done with the decision you've made. And it has to feel like home for you, wherever that is. So whether that's, an in-state school, obviously, if you're thinking about financially, because an out-of-state school is going to carry with it out-of-state tuition rates, right? So if you're thinking, a more economically savvy option, an in-state school, and then public-private, living quarters, academics, all those things considered. It's a lot. It's a big process. It's a lot to consider, but you're going to get a good education no matter where you go. Yeah. Right. It's just a matter of what, because I'm sure had I visited Virginia Tech, I would have thought it was great. Don't
try to appease us now.
No, I'm being honest. I'm sure when the other schools that I visited, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is nice, but UVA, nothing topped UVA.
And I think That's the same way I feel about
yeah.
the law school. Like I went to multiple law schools to tour, and I was like, it's
Mhm.
UVA. It's UVA. Like I literally will go only to UVA, and if I'm not going to UVA, I'm not going to law school. So
it will click. You'll know when it happens.
Yeah.
You'll know, like, you'll be like, this, I can't imagine myself anywhere else.
And I would say, like, you said something really powerful, which is like, make sure that your voice is the loudest. And I think that's the biggest mistake that students make. They think, let me go online and find out. Like somebody will say, I'll be like, okay, the question is, what do you like about the school? And they're like, okay, hold on, let me look at the internet. And I'm like, no, what? When you were looking at the school, you put it on, what did you like? And so they're constantly trying to like game the system or figure out what you all want. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people the worst thing that could happen to you is you are not rejected. The internet, your friends, your mom, that as like paragraph that you edited gets rejected. And then you're constantly wondering, if I had done it, would I not have been rejected? Or you get accepted as this fraud. And then you feel like you have to be that fraud for the next 4 years. So
and that's hard. Being a college student is hard enough.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You don't have the energy to be truthful with you. Like you don't have the energy or the time to fake the funk, if you will. If any, it has to make sense for you, and it has to be comfortable for you. Don't, you have to sign something on your application saying everything that I've submitted to my knowledge is true and factual and blah, blah, blah. Make that actually be the case. Don't fabricate anything or put on airs about anything on your application.
Right.
Like I feel like if I wrote this way, or if I use this transition word, or let me sit with this thesaurus next to me while I write this essay because I want to sound, I want to use some SAT words. Not necessary.
Or the children's obsession with the M dash recently. I'm like, guys, a dash is stop with the M dash.
What is M dash?
It's like the longer dash. The one that's like long. I'm like, why are there so many M dashes? And they're like, no, I have to start with this M dash. I'm like, you honestly think that they're gonna be like, I was gonna admit her, but she doesn't have an M dash.
Or like, oh my goodness.
You know what it was, so there you go.
Yeah, oh my gosh, this essay doesn't have a hook.
I was gonna admit her, but they didn't spike. They weren't well-rounded like all the terms on Reddit. Okay, we could talk to you forever. I'm going to let you go. So we're going to say goodbye off camera in just a second. But anything else that you need to know, what people to know, or where can people get more information or reach out to you or anybody in the team?
Yeah, so first of all, it was a pleasure to talk to all of you tonight and be here with you. Thank you for extending the invite. I would love to be back.
Come back. Come back. We're going to actually have a barbecue this year. So come by the barbecue.
Of course.
Yeah. I'll make you a plate.
Make sure it's good barbecue. Make sure it's good.
Don't.
That part.
We're going to be fine.
Just you can, if you go to virginia.edu, www.virginia.edu, or just Google is your friend. Mm-hmm. Let me say that over and over again. Google is your friend. Google UVA admissions. On our website, you can, top right corner, you can click connect to see who all of us are in admissions. You can click visit to schedule a visit for you and your parents if you want to come up. We have prospective student tours every day of the week now through the end of the school year. And then they'll pick back up the end of the school year for us, which is the beginning of May. And then they pick back up at the beginning of June with our summer interns because our students give our guided tours around grounds. So our tours are scheduled based on their availability. But right now we have tours scheduled twice a day, Monday through Friday. Like I said, we don't track demonstrated interest. So you don't necessarily need to know who reads for your area because we can all talk to you about all things UVA. But one of the deans in our office, Dean J, UVA Dean J, she does all of our social media posts. So she's on TikTok, she's on Instagram.
All the time.
She has a blog that will update everybody on Monday about the admission statistics for this year's class. And her blog is what most students follow to get up-to-date information about deadlines, our process, things like that. So follow her blog, follow her on TikTok. She has a lot of useful information.
She does.
but connecting with us on social media. If you're curious about what UVA offers, follow UVA on social media. A lot of clubs, organizations, and offices on grounds are often tagged in the main @UVA page. But if you want to come in and visit, somebody's always there. Come say hi. I'm in the office most of the time. You can come say hi. If you have any questions specifically that you want to ask me, or certain questions, if you may not be able to come up to UVA, we also have virtual information sessions, or you can ask Jen for my email, and I'd be happy to email with you or talk to you and your family if you have questions separately. But anything to help you through this process, because it's a lot to take in as a junior or a senior. There are a lot of steps. There are a lot of facts coming at you rapidly, a lot of things to process. So anything that we can do to help you through that process, my office and I were willing to do that. So,
and I would say out of every selective, right, I feel like UVA is the most transparent, and they'll be like, oh, you don't like that score, but I like that score. That's a good score. Well, what do you not like about it? Oh, you don't feel confident? Well, yeah, if you don't feel confident, then I would say like there's a dialogue rather than I guess we'll find out if that score is good enough.
We try to be.
You guys have a culture of openness, and I would say the admissions, every person is like all into like, oh no, I really want to help you. And I think students think that you guys are like, I can't wait to reject you. I can't wait for you to say something wrong. I'm like, that's not UVA. That might be, there's some colleges I can think of. It's not UVA. So please use your admissions officers. Okay, we're going to end the broadcast. I'm going to say bye to you guys in a second. But Erica, thank you so much for coming. Did you learn a lot?
I did. I really did. Thank you.
I love watching you take notes. And then,
I'm an avid note taker.
Erica, can you say Wahoo Wah on the way out?
No, ma'am. No.
Erica.
I cannot. I cannot. I just cannot. Maybe off camera. Maybe.
I know.
Wahoo. Okay.
I can't.
Go Tech. Okay.
For that.
Let's go.
Understood. Okay. Battle lines have been drawn.
Okay. Bye, y'all.